Hello and welcome to Room 442. We trust the season's treating you well. Today, we'll look back on the year that was in club soccer. Obviously, the World Cup's made our memories a little bit murky. So we'll try and, let you know what happened in all the major tournaments from the Premier League to across Europe. MLS, of course, that's why Mike is here. And, of course, the Champions League. Let's start, though, with the Champions League. If you remember, way back in the spring, Real Madrid won it yet again, beating Liverpool 1-0. Not really a classic final. Thibaut Courtois was brilliant in that match, but still another championship for Real Madrid. Albert, were they worthy champions this time around?
I think whoever wins it is worthy champions. It's always like that, what's that saying? Oh, the team that lost deserved to win. No, they didn't, because they didn't win. Real Madrid, as difficult as they made this campaign, they somehow brought themselves to win that final. And a lot of it was on the shoulders of two players, in my opinion, and Thibaut Courtois and Karim Benzema, which led him to a Ballon d'Or. He was fantastic. Anytime they needed a goal, he showed up. Hat tricks. And in that final, he was fantastic once again. So were they worthy? Absolutely. And, heading into this new year and this new Champions League knockout stage of this campaign, you can't discount them.
Yeah, 15 goals for Benzema. And, of course, we won the Ballon d'Or. And who'd have thought back then that we'd be talking about a France team making the World Cup final without Karim Benzema even involved. Amazing, but one of the great seasons for a player in the Champions League, Sarah.
Yeah, no, he's been epic, and he deserved that Ballon d'Or completely. I think it was one of the years where we were all very, as fans, in unison agreeing that that was the one person. He did so much for Real Madrid, and like Albert said, the two players that really especially stuck out in that match against Liverpool, Thibaut Courtois and Benzema. But we spoke about the soft camera, Mikey. They had 3 comebacks as well in that tournament, right? PSG, City, Chelsea. And for a team to do that, whether I know you're a bit sour Liverpool fan, but the way they got there too was also really impressive. And I think Benzema and Real Madrid deserved every part of it.
What a gauntlet, eh? You have to go through.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's probably the toughest way to do it.
There were some classics. Yeah. That Man City semi-final, Mikey, was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and that's going to be the way that I sort of remembered this Real Madrid team. It's honestly, yeah, the comebacks were great. That Man City one was absolutely epic, but there was one man at the focal point of it. Of course, it's Karim Benzema, who is finding a way to have this renaissance. We talk about Messi in the World Cup this year. Well, I don't think anyone in 2022 had a bigger renaissance than Karim Benzema. There was always going to be question marks about whether this guy would be capable of leading a team on his own. And he put Real Madrid literally on his back and scored some big-time goals and some big-time moments, and none bigger than, of course, the Champions League final there against Liverpool, and right before that, the Manchester City game as well. So such an unbelievable tournament by Benzema, and unbelievable tournament by Madrid overall to win that.
But it was a unit, right? I mean, that midfield as well. Casemiro leaves, actually, and ends up going to Man United, but he still won that trophy once again. That midfield three, with Luka Modric, I guess, leading them. I mean, you could say there were 3 leaders there,
right,
Albert, but for years and years now, they've dominated European football. There's something special about that team and that midfield. I know Benzema gets all the accolades. I understand that, and so he should, but we must give some love to that midfield three. I've done it for so many years.
Well, it doesn't work without them, right? There's no way that Real Madrid even go that deep without that midfield three. And it's not just them, it's how they also combine with the youth. I thought there was a couple of young players who were fantastic. Camavinga, we didn't see much of him at the World Cup, but he was brilliant for Real Madrid in this Champions League run and the La Liga run as well. And up front, Vinny Jr. I mean, I felt like this past Champions League was his coming out party in a way. We've known he's been so good, and a lot of times people want to compare Vinny and Mbappe and figure out, okay, who's going to be the next best, forward in that position. It's clearly Mbappe, but Vinny Jr. is not far off, honestly, in terms of an attacking player with power and pace who could score goals.
Rodrigo too.
Rodrigo as well.
Another...
Yeah, it was. We talk a lot about Benzema and Courtois, but you're right, James. It was a total unit.
And once again, we see Man City and PSG both fail. The two teams that, with respect, and I don't hold it against them, they're trying to buy championships, right? They have great managers, great coaches, we know that, but obviously star-studded, Sarah. But again, they fall just short, and it tells you this year how much pressure must be on those teams.
Well, I think especially for Man City, because they've been winning the Premier League almost every single year that Pep's been there, and we know how difficult it is to win the Premier League. No offense to Ligue 1, but you know,
Yeah.
it's
We get it.
but that's the thing. It's been something that Guardiola and Manchester City have been so capable of doing. But then when it comes to this tournament style football and the Champions League, they can't get past that one last step. And it's embarrassing because you look at this team and you're like, you guys could field 3 solid teams with all of your players. And you wonder, like, is it the fact that there are just too many players with big egos? They're not actually thinking about creating a team. They're just, you know, thinking about star-studded individuals. I'm not sure, but it's definitely, it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. We should give some love to some Canadians also made some real noise in this season's Champions League. Tajon Buchanan at Club Brugge and Stefan Eustáquio at Porto.
Yeah, 2 guys who we know about. Alphonso Davies, we know about Jonathan David. They've done a lot of this and accomplished a lot of this, but these 2 guys in particular are having really, really impressive Champions League campaigns. And honestly, Club Brugge and Porto are both dark horses, and both of these Canadians are playing absolutely crucial roles on these squads. Now, Tajon Buchanan, the big question with him, is he still going to be at Club Brugge come January? Could he move on to another club that's still in the Champions League, maybe a Napoli, right? He's been linked to Napoli. Could he make that next jump? I know he's linked to it. I know he's going to do it eventually. But yeah, both these individuals are having really special seasons.
But if you're Brugge, for example, and you have a knockout berth in the Champions League round of 16, you don't want to sell anyone right now.
No.
The money you can recoup from just progressing one more round and then wait into the summertime where you can get probably the same money or if not more money for Buchanan, surely you wait. And for him as well. You've come this far with this team. You're playing every single minute in the big games.
Yeah.
You stick around, don't you?
I feel like January is too early. And we talk about this all the time with young players making big moves. It tends to fail a lot. It really does, right? You think of, you know, Renato Sanchez is one that pops into my mind after a fantastic Euro, goes to Bayern Munich, can't get into the squad. He has to end up going back to going to Swansea and kind of working his way back up. And I think if Buchanan makes the big move now, he could be ready for it. But I just feel he's in such a good position with Club Brugge, who are they've been probably one of the faces of this past Champions League campaign. You got to be honest, right? Simone Mignolet has been fantastic. I think he topped their group, correct?
Yeah.
I believe so. I don't think they lost either.
Both teams.
Yeah, both teams. So if I'm Tajon, I would stay. I think he's in a very good situation. But, I mean, if you're a young player and a team like Napoli or a big club in any of the top 5 league comes knocking, how do you say no?
Tough to say no, for sure. We'll see. But the fact that we're talking about Club Brugge in our Champions League review portion of this show just says, you know, what a great campaign they had in the Champions League. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about all things club scene, domestic leagues in particular, the Premier League, that and much more coming up for you in Room 442. Welcome back, and what a year it was in the English Premier League. Man City tops once again, just pipping Liverpool, who had this incredible season. Incredible season. You couldn't play any more games than Liverpool, but in the end they came just short on 2 fronts. We'll get to them shortly. But Mikey, Man City, I mean, listen, you can write them off, but they keep clawing their way back. And just that consistency was just enough in the end to win yet another championship.
Yeah, what is there left to say about this Manchester City team, right? It's almost as if the Premier League is starting to get a little bit too easy for a team like Pep Guardiola's side, and just some of the stories during this whole season that they had is pretty special. And you know, guys that don't really get a lot of clout, obviously the Kevin De Bruynes of the world are going to get a lot of love, but then there's guys like Riyad Mahrez and even a guy like Raheem Sterling, who people forget was just on this Manchester City team. It does feel like a long time ago. And then going back to the back line, you have a guy like João Cancelo, who really stepped up and emerged as his own type of player there. Yeah, a really special team and a dynasty. I think we can honestly say that this Man City team is a dynasty.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people will say it's easy, but I mean, if you look at this current campaign right now, they're not in top place. It goes to Arsenal. This last Premier League win came down to the last game. Right, yeah. It did. They needed a big result, and they got it from, you know, players that you mentioned, Ilkay Gundogan, another player who kind of goes under the radar but pops up in big moments. And it almost felt like it was lined up perfectly with Liverpool, with Man City playing Aston Villa with Steven Gerrard as the manager. Can they stop Man City? And Liverpool needed to win their game, and it lined up that way, but it wasn't the case. But clearly, Man City the dominant team in the Premier League, because when they need to get it done in the Premier League and not anywhere else, they do.
And Pep re-signs another extension. He's obviously hungry for that European crown, right? He's done all he can, like you mentioned there, for domestically in the Premier League. Incredible. They are a dynasty, I agree with you. But he does need to get that footprint and his fingerprints on that trophy, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he just doesn't feel finished yet.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen what he's done at Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and now he wants to do the same with City. He's been so dominant there in the league, but of course the Champions League. So I don't think we will see Pep. I think maybe after this extension, if he doesn't win by then, it might be time to go. But I think we'll only see him leave when he gets the Champions League with City, because then I think he'll feel done and settled.
You wonder where he goes at that point, right?
He's going to go back to Spain.
New York
but
City
to
FC.
Barcelona?
He could go to Barcelona. He has a lot of issues with the people upstairs, which don't we all? He would never coach the national team. So I don't know. He wouldn't coach a team outside of Catalonia. That's the thing. So, and you can't go to Espanyol.
No.
Blasphemy.
What were you saying?
New York City FC.
I knew you were going to say MLS.
It's
You're
written in there. We've
Yeah,
heard the rumors. We've heard the rumblings. Obviously, City
He loves the
football.
States too. He loves
does
New
love
York.
He took
States.
it like a sabbatical in New York,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
And City Football Group obviously owns New York City FC. There's
Yep.
been always these rumblings about when Pep Guardiola's contract finally expires with City, that there is some sort of unspoken agreement or spoken
You're shaking your head.
agreement
Like, what are you
Disgust.
talking about, man?
that he would
What are
go
you doing?
coach NYCFC
Pep Guardiola.
right before the World Cup. He was
No,
the United States.
I
Come
can't.
on.
He has so much to offer at the highest level. It would be a huge get for MLS, but that'd be absolutely shocking. I don't see it.
Maybe then you go and you coach England, right, to a World Cup trophy. Maybe that's
Can
what
you
he does.
imagine Guardiola?
That's what I'm looking forward to in his career. How he'll
International
do
management?
internationally,
That
right?
would be interesting.
Will
Because
he
it's
do
not
it?
week in, week out. It's a different type of management.
So
It is.
will he do it?
I think so. Why not? I could see him coaching Spain. I think
He
he's
would never coach Spain.
he wouldn't coach Spain.
No, he's super Catalan. He's like,
Oh, but he's mentioned in interviews that he wants to do it
He played for
internationally.
Spain.
He did. I don't know. It depends. I feel like coaching might be different. And I also know the Spanish FA have kind of had their time now with all these Catalan coaches coming in this tiki-taka football. They're very frustrated. So if it were to happen, there would be a period of time in between. I
English
think.
football. That'd be
Yeah, be
interesting.
really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, he has trouble in knockout.
Jurgen
tournaments,
Klopp
so.
had a pretty good tenure at Liverpool, and last season was a special season in the hunt for every trophy until the last month of the season. In the end, the cup double, Carabao Cup, FA Cup, short in the Champions League, just short in the Prem, just a successful campaign or not?
Well, it's one of the best campaigns in Premier League history, right? Just by a point total perspective and just the overall number of games that they played, but it still doesn't feel like it was fulfilling because the last two major titles, the two biggest titles arguably that they would care about, the Premier League and the Champions League, they fell just short. And they're, you know what you always say when you look back on campaigns, nobody ever remembers second place, who finishes in second place. And that's honestly really applicable to this Liverpool side. Incredible season, but again, there's something that just doesn't feel right and complete about it.
I mean, the team will always fall short when the quadruple is on for the majority of the season. Let me just put it into perspective of what they did. You know, as a Spurs fan, okay, if we did the cup double, and Tottenham did the cup double, they finished in second place in the Premier League and lost in the Champions League final. That's one of the greatest seasons they've ever had.
The greatest season.
And this Liverpool, what they did, it's dismissed because when people remember their failures and who they lost to. But really, it was a phenomenal season. I mean, Liverpool, we say it all the time, but them and Man City have been the gold standard, not only in the Premier League, but in European football for what, the past 3-4 years?
Yeah, for sure. Times change, right? Man United, tough 12 months for them. Chelsea, a tough 12 months for them, of course, ownership-wise. And now United might be selling the club at some point. We'll find out about that, as might Liverpool as well, actually. But for United, I guess they've turned it around on the field, it seems, late in the season, late in the year. But still, when you look back on 2022, it's going to be Ronaldo's year at United, right? And what happened there? He came off a really good campaign last season, and then everything went pear-shaped, Sarah, at United. He has a terrible season. He gets booed by the fans. He has an interview, and he gets unceremoniously kicked off the team at the end of the year.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because even after all that, though, Manchester United in late 2022, we've seen really turn around. They look like a competitive side. They look like they're kind of figuring out that starting 11. And they look like they're making a good run for the top 4. So if they're able in 2023, I think, to finish top 4, then I kind of think, regardless of all of the train wreckery that was happening.
Train wreckery. That's a great word, by the way, which we're going to start using a lot.
Perfect. You know, I don't think it will be, it'll matter as much because they were able to turn it around. I don't know, you as a United fan, would you not think that finishing like in the top 4 Champions League next season, regardless of all the Ronaldo drama, you guys did what you had to do?
It's almost like Manchester United needed the Ronaldo drama to give them that little kick in the butt to kind of really kickstart this sort of full-on fledged, I want to transition, rebuild, I guess you can call it. You know, the keys are now with Erik ten Hag, the manager, which is way more important than giving the keys to an individual player. And as Sarah said, it kind of looks like this Manchester United team is starting to look like there is some sort of sense of direction which this team will be heading in. And yeah, hopefully 2023 has brighter days ahead than 2022, and I can't wait to leave this 2022 season behind.
The noisemakers late in 2022, you could say, were Erling Haaland at Man City and what he's doing to the record books. I mean, remember that? I know it's been a long time, but he's just destroying the record books. And Newcastle emerging as a genuine player in the transfer market, yes, but also in the table as well. Out of those two, who do you think is the biggest noisemaker?
Probably Erling Haaland, right? He gets the goals. The goal scorers get the headlines, but you know what Eddie Howe is doing at the moment at Newcastle is incredible. So smart with his transfer business. He's brought in the right players. He's built a team. There's a fantastic system. And I think what's happening with Newcastle is that it's like a step-by-step process. They're building the foundation instead of splashing the cash right out of the gate. Whereas I think this way, you build the foundation, you can improve on it, and maybe eventually improve on the manager as well. Not saying anything about Eddie Howe, but I mean, the owners are going to want that flashy signing. And it could be someone like Pep, not Pep Guardiola, but someone in that category. And I think Newcastle are really stepping in the right direction, and there's no reason why they couldn't finish in the top 4. I mean, they're only playing in the Premier League. They'll be in a couple of cups, but no European football. Yeah. There's a chance that they can finish in the top 4.
What's incredible is this Newcastle team 1 year ago was in a relegation battle.
Yeah, exactly.
Now
they're around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without the big splash just yet, right? We're short for time here. Let's quickly get, though, to the rest of Europe here. Let's start with you, Sarah. La Liga, a tumultuous 12 months, fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the table from last season, we saw Real Madrid winning, Barca, Atletico, Sevilla, Standard. I think the biggest story here, though, is Sevilla going from 4th place. They're currently in 18th place going back in from the World Cup break. Lopetegui gone, Wolves. Sampaoli doesn't know what they're doing. Yeah, like Sevilla is what I'm watching right now. As it stands, Barca are a point above Madrid. Title race is on, which is great. I-Liga, as they say, but Sevilla, man, this team from 4th to 18th.
It's crazy.
I'm worried.
It really is. Albert, Serie A?
Serie A, AC Milan winning the title. First time since 2010, 2011, their 19th title, and they beat Inter to the title. And it's the back-to-back season. I think it was the first time in a while where the Milan clubs were battling for top spot. Yeah. It's good to see Serie A coming back. I think the banter era of Serie A is now gone. And now we're starting to see a lot of the teams start playing a lot better. Look at Napoli this year. That's another story we should probably talk about.
Yeah, Mikey, that's just jumped out to you.
Yeah, just quickly, Napoli's story was absolutely incredible. You think about where they finished last season, it was 3rd. And then after that season, it was a turning of the page when it came to selling a lot of key players. Obviously, Lorenzo Insigne to Toronto FC. Then you had Kalidou Koulibaly to Chelsea, Fabian Ruiz to PSG. There was Dries Mertens. I can go on and on in terms of the list of players that departed the club. But yet, here we are at the end of 2022, and Napoli has arguably been the story of this season with what they've accomplished in the Champions League. And currently, 13 games into the Serie A league this year table, they're unbeaten, and they're top of the league. Just a remarkable story.
I think the Serie A's back, for sure. I love Milan winning last year, and this year, that is some race. It really is. All right, when we come back, it's to this side of the Atlantic, Major League Soccer, as Albert and Sarah. Now, Mikey. Mikey breaks down just what happened in the last 12 months. Welcome back as we look at the club scene across the world. This block, Major League Soccer, Mikey, which is kind of your domain, let's be honest here. LAFC with the story. They dominated the league campaign. They dominated the playoffs. They dominated football in North America.
Yeah, they really started to move the needle and change the direction of Major League Soccer here, and honestly just advance the league overall with some of the moves that they were making and what they were able to accomplish. You know, a lot of people forget Bob Bradley left LAFC this year and up stepped Steve Cherundolo, and he was tasked with sort of revamping and taking the squad to the next level. Obviously, he got a lot of help from ownership, bringing in really notable names in Giorgio Chiellini, Gareth Bale, Christian Teo, some really big names, but yet it was just the core of that team that was able to step up and move them to new heights we haven't seen so far in Major League Soccer. One of the best seasons ever. With
Canada's Matt Scripo in goal, of course, and in the final, that awful leg injury, we obviously wish him so well in his recovery. That was nasty. To the Canadian clubs, Montreal stood out. They were fantastic this year. Quickly, your thoughts on a good but not great team?
Yeah, no, it has to be said that Montreal had the best season out of any Canadian club. That's not even debatable. What they were able to do under Wilfred Nancy in really bring in a lot of Canadians, a lot of Canadian talent into the mix, and really accomplish a really good season by playing domestic players, Major League Soccer level players. It has to be said that it was really, really good to see. Now the biggest question with Montreal is what's next. Obviously, they're losing Wilfred Nancy, they're losing Georgi Mihalovic, Alistair Johnson's gone, Ismail Kone's gone. What's going to happen with Kamal Miller and Joel Waterman? This rebuild, it's going to be a rebuild now for Montreal, and it's going to be quite the task.
Vancouver were doing really well for much of the season, and then in the end, another so-so season.
That's been the story of the Vancouver Whitecaps for the longest time, is that they get so close, but they can never really get over the hump, and we saw that once again this year. Now they say goodbye to the only Canadian designated player in the league, Lucas Cavallini, and you know, this Vancouver Whitecaps team actually isn't in that bad of a position when you think about some of their core pieces. And of course, Vanni Sartini also at the helm there for yet another year, and I think he's going to be a little bit more experienced heading into another campaign. So hopefully Vancouver can take that next step in sort of their evolution, because you're right, that's what they're perceived as.
As for Toronto FC, I suppose you could say in many ways they owned the summer with the transfers. In comes Insigne, Bernardeschi, Crescito. Individually, they look great, but once again, down the stretch run, and failed to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's what leaves a sour taste in people's mouths, right? Is because you had such high expectations, bringing Richie Laret back, Mark Anthony Kaye as well. You know, there was a lot of hype, a lot of excitement around the team, and you'll never forget that 45 minutes against Charlotte when Insigne and Bernardeschi made their debuts. But yeah, it leaves a sour taste in their mouths. I think overall this was supposed to be a rebuilding year, 2022. So let's see what happens in 2023. Expectations are high.
Re-signed Jonathan Osorio, which is huge,
Massive.
Of course, for TFC. Okay, that was the club scene. Any comments on MLS, people? No, we'll get to it later, I'm sure, in the next few weeks, for sure. I'm sure we missed out a ton. We have only 23 minutes to play with here, but we will cover all the top leagues in detail in 2023. Hope you enjoyed that. Cheers for watching.